Fast and Furious, Kang is beloved as good guy Han, but there's a major horror baddie he's keen to play. Kang is already known for playing a pretty iconic character in the Fast and Furious franchise, but it turns out the actor has a particular love for the horror genre, and has one character that he would love to play on film if given the chance. I'd say we're probably about due for another attempt at rebooting the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, so how about Kang playing Freddy Krueger? There are few horror movie villains on the same level as Freddy Krueger, to be sure. His choice of clothing, the sweater and the hat, the bird body, and then, on top of that, the glove full of blades, all combined to make an iconic character, even to those of us who were supposed to be too young to watch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. The last Nightmare on Elm Street movie was the 2010 reboot that starred Jackie Earle Haley as the slasher role made famous by Robert Englund. That movie didn't launch a new franchise. While it actually made more money than most Freddy Krueger movies, general consensus was the new Nightmare on Elm Street was terrible, and thus it all remained pretty quiet in Springfield since then. There was talk a few years ago of yet another Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, but we haven't heard much recently. Even if that particular project has died, its Kang recently directed his first feature, a horror comedy called Shaky Shivers, and he spoke with Collider about the project, as well as his general love of horror movies that he had growing up. He has a particular love for the prosthetics work of the 80s that brought so many classic characters to life, and now that he's had a small taste of that himself, following his joining the Obi-Wan, likely only a matter of time before we see Freddy again. Kang admits that he's not sure he has the stamina for the prosthetics that it would take to become Freddy Krueger. At the same time, as somebody who loves the craft, he'd probably be much more willing to go through with it all than a lot of people. Scarlett Johansson couldn't keep her tears under wraps after the Under the Skin premiere. Venice Film Festival director Alberto Barbera told The Guardian that upon the Jonathan Glazer-helmed film premiering at the 2013 festival, lead actress Johansson almost cried. "It was one of the worst screenings I've attended. It was the only time the audience booed a film," Barbara said. Scarlett was almost in tears. "I tried to say to her, 'Don't worry, in time the film will be recognized.' And that's exactly what happened. It's now a cult movie." Actress Johansson told The Guardian in 2014 that she felt super exposed at the first screening of Under the Skin. At the end, when the lights came up, there was this sound of people cheering and booing at the same time, but with equal gusto. "I didn't know how to react to it," she said. "I think I was I wouldn't say disturbed, but I was sort of shocked. I looked over at Jonathan, and he was filled with glee, absolutely thrilled. We left the theater and I was like, 'That was so strange.' And Jonathan was like, 'That was the best reaction. That was the most amazing sound I've ever heard in my life.'" She continued, "I would way rather not have middle ground. I would way rather fail in someone's eyes than be that sort of tepid. That's the worst. I remember going to see Eyes Wide Shut, and I saw it like 3 times in the theater, and the first time I saw it, I hated it. I had a visceral reaction to it. I hated it so much. And then I was like, I have to see that movie again. I hated it so much. And then I loved it. I think in some ways I hated the emotional experience. It's like a visceral reaction. There's passion behind it. I can't ever totally fault a film that I absolutely hate." Under the Skin was critically acclaimed upon release, despite the praise not being reflected at the box office. Director Glazer took almost a decade to make his third feature, after Sexy Beast and Birth, with Under the Skin being an adaptation of Michael Faber's 2001 novel. Glazer told IndieWire's Ann Thompson at the time of the film's release that Johansson was very confident on screen. "To an extent, she's like all actors. She's very confident and lacks confidence deeply at the same moment," Glazer said. "She has a very strong sense of herself. She didn't go into this film without understanding why she's doing it. It was not strategic. It was about wanting to work with someone. You have to trust each other. If you don't trust and can't say whatever you think, there's no point in getting out of bed." Glazer later added that it was an alarming experience to screen Under the Skin to audiences, first at Venice and later the Telluride Film Festival. "It's an unnatural thing, so it just feels. It's all strange."